The time is just gone 8:20 a.m. on News and Views this morning, and we kick off this morning as we have been doing in the last few days since the launch of the 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence in children. And this morning we're looking at the UN system of 16 Days of Activism. And remember, this goes through from the 25th of November right until the 10th of December. And we're joined this morning by program specialist, Women, Peace and Security at the United Nations. And we're joined by Loveness Nyakujarah. Loveness, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning to you, and thank you for having me.
Right. What I found quite interesting is the theme for this year, the 2020 global theme, and it's called Orange the World, Fund, Respond, Prevent, and Collect. And I'm just trying to wrap my mind, Loveness, around the wisdom behind this, the thinking behind this particular theme.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that question. So if we recall that this year's 16 days comes against the background of a peculiar time in our history when we are faced with the COVID-19 pandemic. It has taught us a few lessons that we can also apply to the scourge of gender-based violence. So this is around 4 key areas that if we pay attention to, we could also start winning the war against violence. I'm sorry that I'm using the word that has some violent connotations, war, but it's almost as if we have to be very, vigilant to make sure that we fight gender-based violence the same way we've been doing for COVID-19. So we stayed fund because we recognize, as we have in the time of COVID, that the investment we need to put towards gender-based violence must measure up to the huge cost of violence. If we just look closely, research has shown us that across the world, violence can cost us about 1% to 3% of our GDP. So if we translate that to South Africa, it means that we need anywhere between 50 billion and 100 billion to fight gender-based violence. So yet the National Strategic Plan has only been costed for 8 billion. So we are making a call to all stakeholders, including government, civil society, or private sector for that matter, to invest in a way that commensurates with the challenge that we're faced with. Just like we've put all our efforts, all our investments to COVID-19, so too must we for gender-based violence. So that's the first thing. So we also say respond because we need holistic services for victims of gender-based violence so that they emerge as survivors. At UN, we promote what we call the Essential Services Package, which outlines the minimum standards that must be adhered to by all who provide services. So whether it's health, whether it is the criminal justice system, whether it is the psychosocial violence, but even more importantly, is giving women alternatives, because sometimes they're not able to leave abusive partners because they do not have means to take care of themselves or their children. So in addition to getting them out of the immediate danger they are in, they need to be able to survive. So we believe that economic justice is an avenue and a strategy for ending and responding to violence. And it is quite fitting that South Africa, in line with the global theme, have chosen the theme Women's Economic Justice for a Non-Violent and Non-Peace South Africa. So we believe that it's part of the response. We need to ensure economic justice, which is essential for women to have economic power to leave their abusive relationships, or at least then they have some leverage to negotiate or to avoid violence. So that's the second thing. Thirdly, we say prevent because we must change the cultural and social norms and attitudes that perpetuate gender-based violence. We have to continue. In fact, we have to stop the normalization of gender-based violence in our society. We've almost become numb to it. Sometimes we just act as if it's just another statistic, yet there are women, aunts, uncles, and our sisters who are behind those statistics. So this can be achieved by various means, community dialogue, promoting community activism, so that there's absolutely zero tolerance for gender violence, whether it's in our family, whether it is in the workplace, or the various areas where we interact in society. So the third thing is that we prevent. Lastly, we say collect, because we believe what is not counted doesn't count. So we to invest in data analytics, monitoring systems, and make comprehensive gender-based violence data available. That's where we are able to channel our investment and ensure that it is we can respond adequately. So if we know, just like if we know that there are 19 COVID patients, we know that we need to make 19 beds, hospital beds available. We need to make 19 ventilators available. So too, when it comes to gender-based violence, we need to be able to understand what we are dealing with. Then we can make the appropriate investment. So we welcome the fact that SAPS, the South Africa Police Service, has been able to identify where the hotspot areas of gender-based violence are. That way, we are also able to channel advocacy efforts and also channel programs that will lead to the behavior change that we want to see. During COVID-19, we as UN collected data around gender-based violence. This was a rapid assessment, and we did this through an online survey. We realized that women who are older than 18, at least 19% experienced physical violence during the lockdown period. About 28% say they experienced emotional violence, while 19% say they experienced sexual abuse. So now we have an idea of what the extent of violence was during the lockdown period 4 and 5. So we are able to then, make policy recommendations and so forth to be able to respond to violence. So in a nutshell, this is how we came up with the theme: fund, respond, prevent, and collect.
Well, Loveness, I must say it's obviously very encouraging to note, and when one actually looks at this theme, and it's a holistic approach, and it's also quite comprehensive and all-encompassing in terms of dealing with this scourge or this cancer of gender-based violence.
Mm-hmm. It is. And I think that what is even more encouraging is that since the total shutdown, March in 2018, we've seen a coming together of society. It's not yet perfect science, but the fact that the president is leading this charge to call for an end to gender-based violence, there is political leadership. We're also seeing the private sector, various stakeholders coming on board in ways not done before in a very long time. So you're right that there is quite a holistic approach, but we are far from addressing this and ending the scourge. We continue to see the media reports. We continue to see and hear women crying out for help. And so the efforts need to be redoubled even as we go into the new year. COVID has also rolled back some of the gains around gender equality and the gains that we've made since, this year is 25th anniversary of Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. If you recall, in 1995, when that roadmap for gender equality was signed onto. It's also a time we commemorate the peace and security agenda. So these milestones also remind us that we have a long way to go as we look at 2030, the deadline for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals.
Well, Loveness, thank you very much for that and for that update and for coming on and talking with us here on Salam Media this morning. We wish you all the best and please take care.
Thank you for having us at the UN, and we remain committed to the efforts for ending gender-based violence. Have a good day. And have a good
Loveness,
day to all the listeners.
yes, thank you very much for that, Loveness. Loveness Nyakujarah joining us this morning on the topic of the UN system of 16 days of activism. The time is just gone 8:30 a.m. We come back. We'll be joined by Al-Jama party leader Hanif Hendricks. His engagement with the Department of International Relations regarding the Saudi visa issue.